Hi guys, I just wanted to pop in and answer some of the questions from yesterday's thread. If you do have any more questions, just let me know. And if you're watching on the replay and you've got a question, just put #replay and then your question and I'll come back and answer it in a later video. That's absolutely fine. So some of the questions that we got asked yesterday were what are core exercises? Can we get some examples of some exercises? Yes. So core exercises are any exercises that work your animal's abdominal muscles. So these can be like really simple things, like every time your pet stands up and moves, they're having to use their abdominal muscles. They're having to engage those core muscles so that they can move forward. Because if we didn't have a core and we didn't engage those core muscles, our pets would just fall over. They wouldn't be able to stand up, they wouldn't be able to move, they wouldn't be able to do anything. So all of your pets, I can assure you, do have a core and they do have core muscles. But every animal has a different strength core. So some of the exercises we can do to increase our core strength in the dog, quite simply, we can just do tricks like our sit to stands, down to stands. Anything that makes our dog move is going to increase their core strength. Anything where they're on an unstable surface or we're shifting their weight. So we can do that by using wobble cushions, wobble boards, anything as simple as just taking them in the car. Anything that is asking them to stand still on an unstable surface, they're having to engage those core muscles, those postural stabiliser muscles, to stop them from wobbling over, falling to the side. They're having to engage their core to keep their balance. So anything like that. And also exercises like our cavaletti. In order for our animals to be able to pick up their limbs and put it over the pole, they have to engage their core. So if you think when they're walking they have to engage their core, how much more do they have to engage their core when they're stepping over obstacles? This is the same if you walk them on an unstable surface or where there's obstacles, like in a wood where they constantly have to pick their feet up over branches. On sand, so that's a more unstable surface than tarmac, say, so that's going to work your dog's core more than walking on the pavement. So that's a brief overview of your canine core exercises. I do have a canine core guide that goes into a bit more detail on the exercises. I'll pop the link in the comments for you if you're interested in that. And then for the horse, we have a few different ones in the horse actually. So again, everything that we've said for the dog with regards to changing where their weight is, so asking them to shift their weight but remain still. Travelling again, walking on different surfaces, so they're having to engage their core more as they're stepping over obstacles. So again, the cavaletti or pole work, really useful in our horses to get their core engaged. But in our horses we also have some really specific abdominal exercises. So we have ab lift exercises, which is asking our horses directly to engage their abdominal muscles. Pelvic rounding exercises, which are actually asking our horse to engage their hind limb, to tuck their hind limb underneath them. But to do that, they have to engage their core. There is no way your horse can tuck in their hind end if their core isn't engaged. So when we're working our horses and we're trying to get them to engage their hind limbs, it's really important that we remember that they need a strong core to do that. So to get our horses working in that nice outline, not only do we need our hind limb engagement, we also need our core strength. So those core exercises are really key if we want to get our horses moving nicely and engaging properly from behind. So exercises like hill work, going up and down hills, are really useful in our horses to engage their core. So hacking basically in general is brilliant for core work because you've got the different surfaces, the hills, and stepping over obstacles if you're going through a wood. So you've covered all bases there, so that's a nice easy one to get you started. But if you do want more information check out our core guide. I'll put it in the comments. So our other question was on extension. So how do we recognise if we've got the correct amount of extension, and how is it measured? So I think the first question we need to ask ourselves there is, why do we want the extension? Like, are we talking about we're just walking our pets normally and we're wondering if they've got the correct amount of extension or if they've got restricted extension? Or are we wanting it for a specific purpose? So like in our agility dogs, that might be jumping over a long jump. We want more extension so that they cover that full long jump. Or in our horses, that might be when we're asking for the extended trot or extended canter and we're actively asking for a more extended stride. So that's what we need to decide first, because obviously if we're asking for an extended trot and we're getting a medium trot, then we're lacking extension. But if we're only asking for a medium trot and we're getting a medium trot, then we've got the right amount of extension. So it depends in what context we're looking at it, really. But basically, there are a number of ways we can measure the extension that we're getting. So we can compare each limb to one another. So if one of our hind limbs is going further backwards or is being left, looks like it's being left behind, then that one is extending more than the other one. So that would be an indicator there that we've got more extension in one hind limb than we do in the other. And so that would be the sort of time when we would look for help, and that would be a great time to make sure that you're working your pets evenly on both sides, to make sure it's not just something that has occurred by accident because we've been accidentally working one side more than the other. And then we can look at then doing specific exercises to increase the extension of the limb that is not extending as much, or to reduce the extension on the limb that is perhaps overextending. So there's a number of reasons there why one limb might be extending further than the other. But I think the main thing that you want to remember is it depends what you're asking for and it depends what you're doing to what extension you want. There are other ways of measuring extension. For instance, you can measure the extension of a joint using like a fancy protractor, but I don't think that's going to be very useful for most of us on a day-to-day basis. But if you feel that there is a reduced extension, you want to measure it, that's a good way of getting a quantitative measure of whether you have increased or decreased the extension, if that's something you're specifically working towards. But personally, I would just do it by eye. So I would set out my cavaletti at the set distance that I know works for my dog or for my horse, and then over time I would aim to get them further apart, and that by our dog or our horse being able to easily do that exercise with the poles further apart, they have increased their extension. So it can just be as simple as that as well. I also had a question about measuring fitness and meeting fitness goals. How do we know when we've got there? So that, I think it's really important to set out an achievable goal that is measurable. So instead of just going, I want to increase my horse's core strength, why don't we put that into a more attainable goal? Like, I want to be able to work in an outline for 5 minutes, and my horse be able to sustain that without me asking constantly. So try and use attainable, measurable goals. So give yourself something that you can go, yes, I have achieved that, or no, I haven't achieved that. And that makes it much easier to measure where you're at. If you do have any more questions, just let me know, because that's the end of the questions that I got asked yesterday. I'm happy to do another video answering any of your questions. But that's all from me for today. See you later.